Hello, my name is Elliott and I'm a sector strategist, advisor and connector. And I'm delighted to be running a webinar, the first of a series for Matt and On Trade Consultancy. Our guests today are Matt, Amber, Katie and Mark, all of whom I know well. And I'd like to start with them introducing one another one by one. We'll start with Matt, then Amber, then Katie, and then Mark. Over to you, Matt.
Thank you, Anne. I'm Matt Steinerfall. I'm Managing Director of On Trade Consultancy, better known as OTC. We are a on-trade sales agency working with predominantly drinks brands and hospitality technology clients, but we've also reached out into hospitality services recently. We've got 20 clients, 10 of which are drinks brands, 7 of which are hospitality tech, and 3 are in the services sector. And I've now got a team of 11 consultants around the country helping our clients achieve their goals by getting sales.
Brilliant. Thanks, Matt. Amber.
Hello, I am Amber Staynings, the CEO and founder of Bums on Seats. We are an outsourced sales agency for operators, so we grow revenue through pre-booked business. This is year 2 business for me, so I've got a lot of stories to share in terms of how we've dealt with that, but bring on year 3. And we have 4 key pillars of our business. So the first one is we run sales strategy audits for our clients. We produce sales training workshops, which is actually endorsed by the Institute of Hospitality. We write sales plans and obviously do the implementation. And then the biggest part of our business is we have consultancy, and we run white label sales teams, and then we have consultants on the ground driving sales as well. So nice to meet you all.
Great, Amber. Thanks. Katie.
Hi, I'm Katie Moses. I'm founder and MD of Cam Media. Cam Media is a research agency focusing on grocery, retail and hospitality. We create bespoke research projects for our clients to essentially help them to grow their revenue. And we focus on consumer, the people within those businesses, so within operations, products, and then anything else that will help our clients to have a holistic view of their business and what they could be doing to make consumers happier and to create a better customer experience.
Great. Thanks, Katie. Mark.
Yeah, hi, I'm Mark Brumby, the founder and chief bottle washer at Langton Capital. We're a small sector analyst firm. We write about stocks, sector trends, produce a daily email, invest in stocks from time to time ourselves, and advise investors.
And are you the only one of us who's had COVID?
I don't know, but I've definitely had it. Yes, I did get a positive test last month. Not fun. I think, I guess I've got immunity now, but I would have settled for a vaccine. I think I would have rather had that. I think I was the bad end of mild or the mild end of bad, and I wouldn't advise it, but it's in the past, I hope. Hopefully for the sector at some point as well.
Yeah.
Nobody else had it?
I think I did. I was actually on a cruise ship on the 1st of March in Miami. So probably 2 of the worst things, and to be in Florida at that time as well. Mild case, lost my sense of taste and smell, tight chest, achy joints. That was it, really.
Oh, so both of you relatively mild.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mark's comes mainly from tramping across the moors in North Yorkshire. I think he probably deserves it for all of that.
No,
I think I'm going to point the finger directly at my wife. She didn't get it tested, but I think the whole family had it, and then I came down at the end.
Great. So you've got personal experience of what it's been like to go through the pandemic. And if you look back, I mean, doesn't it seem a long time ago to look back to February when we just really no idea, perhaps we should have done, but we had really no idea what was going to happen. When you look back to then, what for you have been the biggest impacts on our sector? And Mark, we'll start with you on that one.
Yes, well, I mean, yes, it's probably the biggest thing that's happened in any of our careers. And it brings home with a vengeance the fact that 100-year events don't feature in 5-year business plans. So I'd be very surprised, really, if anybody had planned for this. I mean, government probably should have done and probably did, but most businesses, in fact, all businesses that I know of, have been caught on the wrong foot. And it's a little bit like Pompeii in Roman times, wherever you were at that moment, that's how you've been frozen. And those are the things you've had to deal with. Whatever debt structure you had, wherever you were in your expansionary program, or whatever you were doing, that's what you've had to deal with for the next 7, 8, 9 months.
Katie.
I mean, where to start? Obviously, the negative side of things is that we've lost some great operators, we've lost some great businesses, and looking at those who are struggling now, I find it very hard not to get overly emotional every single time I look at Twitter, or I turn on the TV, or I speak to a colleague in the industry. I think that negative impact has been huge, but I also like to think that there will be some positives that come out of this, just because I'm an eternal optimist, and otherwise I'd throw myself off a bridge if I didn't think like that. So, I think that we have to also look at the impact, at those positive impacts, and, things like the sheer amount of innovation that we've seen in the sector that has absolutely blown us away. The speed with which people have, that darn word pivoted, the speed at which people have pivoted, the different things that the sector has then brought to the table in order to get through the impact of this pandemic. And I think that we've got to think of that as much as the negative side of things, if only to keep our chins up, so to speak.
And I'll come on to that more. I'll explore that innovation bit in a minute then. Samba, your view on...
Yeah, I think I agree with what's been said. It's the year that's shaken the sector, isn't it? And I think the word that we use over and over again is survival, survival, survival. And it's not one plan, it's 2 plans, it's not 3 plans, it's 4 plans. And it's every time there's been some sort of green shoot, there's had to be another plan. And it's been devastating, and it's been heartbreaking, and it's been knackering. But I am an eternal optimist as well. And I do believe that that next year will look different, which I know we'll come on to, so I won't dwell on that. But I think that, 660,000 job losses, I think the stat is now, the effect on people's mental health and livelihoods, you can't sugarcoat that, really. So yeah, it's been bloody awful. But let's see what good has come out of it and what will continue to come out of it.
Matt.
I think the negatives, 25% of all hospitality might not reopen again. That's the biggest shock. Positives, I've never been more closer to the industry. People are rallying together, people you haven't spoken to for years or have been distant before, approaching you about certain things, wanting feedback, wanting support. We've brought on quite a few aligned hospitality charities to our organisation now, which we're supporting. I've started a Facebook group called Pub and Club Uncertain Times, and we've got over 2,000 publicans on that. And it's a great board for people to talk about issues. How did you overcome this situation, that situation, rent relief, whatever the subject is. It's been fantastic from that side, how people have rallied together.
Yeah. So to build on your point then, Katie, about innovation, I think we have seen, well, the speed of innovation and the amount of innovation, I think, has been quite astonishing. And you've obviously still seen that daily. But from your perspective, what opportunities do you think the pandemic has thrown up? And if you to sort of pick, I don't know, 2 or 3 businesses each that have made the most of these opportunities, who would they be, and what innovation would you highlight? And Katie, we'll start with you because it was your comment.
Okay. First of all, I think that, there needs to be a massive shout out to all of the tech businesses out there who have literally managed to deploy technology that they were planning on putting in somewhere in 4 years' time, and that was going to take 4 months to bed in 4 weeks and bed it in 4 days. I think I speak to the guys that have put in track and trace, like the guys at Airship and Toggle, and the guys at Wi-Fi Social, Wireless Social, all those people that you speak to, that, a lot of them have been working sort of through the night to achieve what they've achieved. And I think that definitely deserves a sort of well done. For me, a really big takeaway is exactly that, takeaway and delivery. I think that some stats that we had is that before the pandemic, around 7% of people had ordered through a takeaway or delivery app. That now sits at around 24%. And as a researcher, I can tell you that's a figure to get very, very excited about. We did some research recently as well that looked at God forbid, hospitality not being open over Christmas and New Year. And we had 25% of people that said to us, okay, if it's not open, I'll still get a takeaway Christmas dinner on the day. You know, we had, I've got the figures here because they're brand new out yesterday, so I don't know them yet, I'm afraid. But so 25% of people said, I'd happily buy a New Year's Eve celebrate at home box from one of my local pubs, bars or restaurants, you know. So I think that pivot that we've done is incredibly important. And I also think we have to remember that it's not always a massively amazing, slick process. On one hand, you've got Hakkasan, who managed to turn every single one of their restaurants round to delivery within 4 days of lockdown. I've had one myself. It's absolutely amazing. If you want to treat yourself, then I can highly recommend it. Then if we look at the other end, you can look at the Victoria Inn down in Cornwall, Mark there. So he's managed to, on the day of lockdown, he turned around to the waitresses and said, right, you're on the phones. He turned around to the chefs and said, you're still chefing, but find boxes. And he's turned his entire business into a pub deliver at home business. And I spoke to him just after Father's Day, and he'd sold more roasts on delivery on Father's Day than he would have done if he'd have done covers. So, you know, I think that, you know, it doesn't have to be, you know, it doesn't have to be one extreme or the other, because everybody in it has managed to pivot and do that really well. So that would be my sort of my key points that we should be, you know, pleased with the innovation that we've seen in the sector.
Yeah. Mark, what about you?
Yeah, I'd reiterate the delivery and the click and collect side of things. I mean, for the pubs and restaurants, particularly restaurants, I think being able to deliver almost immediately post-lockdown was a big plus. And some of them have moved, well, Katie just said the figure 7 to 24% or thereabouts. So a quarter of what would be a normal week's sales now going in delivery. Oh, sorry, more than that, but that's the number of people who are using the apps. Mm-hmm. And we've heard back from some pizza operators, for example, that a large proportion of their estates are busier now than they were pre-lockdown. Now, that is, we don't know what's cannibalization, what are these new customers, or are these customers that can't sit down, and how many of them will you keep post-lockdown? And that's going to be one of the critical questions, because if you can keep the incremental delivery revenues, you are going to be in a pretty good place post-lockdown. If they bump each other out of the way, then less so. But the bottom line is that if you've got a decent delivery operation, you should, well, you may well be breaking even or even a little bit better during lockdown with a view to doing better still thereafter.
Yeah. What about the, you know, talk about delivery, you know, the sort of monopoly in lots of ways that delivery have, that even if you're an independent, they're starting, you know, the charges might be 35-40%. Is that going to be a real block to innovation going forward, do you think?
It's a very substantial amount of money. You do save on the waiting staff and the cleaning up and the some of the preparation. You obviously still need a chef, but if you don't have the waiting staff, your margin would be higher, but for the fact that you're paying obviously Deliveroo or Uber Eats 30-35%. I don't think that will stop them pushing this as a growth area going forward. I mean, we've heard back from operators that capacity has had to be reduced because of social distancing. So if you cut in capacity by 30-35%, and you're busy post-lockdown, hopefully you will be, and you can plug that gap with delivery, even with a 30% margin hit, but you're saving a little bit on your waiting staff. I think the outlook could be quite bright for some of these operators.
Yep. Yeah. Great. Amber?
Yeah, I think my angle is always going to be around people, really. My business is a people-based business. Bums on Seats gets people into venues. And actually more than that, it's the teams that are working within hospitality, which I think, you know, those guys on the front line, absolutely phenomenal. And I think the innovation for me is two-part. I think one is putting the customer first again, which sounds obvious, but I think that can get lost over things like profit margins and, you know, actually going back and reviewing your marketing, your branding and your messaging and your company ethos and your values. So important. Things like sustainability, all of that stuff that people want to hear from you about, I think has come, a lot of that has been sort of pushed forward because of COVID. And then how we treat our staff, I think has significantly improved for a lot of businesses. And I appreciate not all, but for a lot of businesses. businesses. And there's some great examples of that. You know, Brewdog sent a case of beer to every single one of their team every week during lockdown. I think what Green King have done by customer first and actually the whole safety element and making sure their staff feel safe is amazing. Mitchell and Butler, they've got this incredible training program, and both Katie and I were at the NEATers judging this week, and we were saying before we started, you know, it was a really emotional week, and some of the innovation that's come out of, right, our guys are on furlough, they're at home, they can still train. How do we quickly turn around online learning? How do we upskill them, and how do we keep them engaged in the business? So I think absolutely there's been a lot of innovation around people and guests, and long may that continue.
Yeah, Matt, what have you seen? And which operators would you pull out of this as being great examples of innovators?
Oh, Dishoom with their home kits, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Likewise with Honest Burger and their sort of homemade patties. And they've partnered with Square Root Soda, one of our clients now, to do a sort of shandy with some of their products. But two of our clients have done massive innovation, one being Charged Up. They're the charging stations in all the pubs that you would have seen. They pivoted their business into Cleaned Up, and they partnered with Diageo to get 60,000 hand sanitizing stations out to hospitality for free. That was insane what they did within a 2-week period, and how they designed everything, got it manufactured in the UK and distributed out to all hospitality ahead of the 4th of July. And Cobus, who you know, and they pivoted their business during the lockdown and got all their developers to do a in-house click and collect and order to a table solution, which is now free for all their clients. So they don't need to go to a third party, it's all done in-house for them. So there's been fantastic innovations during the lockdown period and since then as well.
I mean, mine, I suppose, would be, not that I'm being asked, but would be Feed Our Frontline and what the operators had. I've got a view. I think Feed Our Frontline was just remarkable, actually, in everything, to get all of those operators together and get them delivering food into hospitals where they had no processes, no way of working, and they've had to do it all from scratch. So that would sort of be mine. I'll keep quiet now. So in terms of your own businesses and looking at those, what opportunities have you seen and how have you made the most of them? Mark has obviously used his experiences to write content, but what other opportunities have you found, Mark?
Well, I've taken the opportunity not to wear a tie and not to get shaved and various things, but as far as the business is concerned, the first and primary objective of most businesses is to stay in business, to keep the things going that you really need to keep going, and to put some of the more discretionary things to the side. So we've kept the main tool that we have is the daily email that goes out. There's a free version and a premium version, and the free version is to put our name in front of people to get the bare bones of the facts out there in as timely a fashion as possible. And then in the premium version, we have analysis of the facts. So we're not journalists as such, we are analysts, and we do analyze the data to the best of our ability and try and call the trends and at least observe them in real time rather than report on them in historic terms after the event. So we've been watching, I mean, we've touched on some of the biggest trends already. I mean, delivery, how you deal with fixed versus variable costs, how you deal with your landlords, how supply is coming out of the market. Matt mentioned 25% of operators potentially not opening again, or sites not opening again. So we just try and observe things and make, well, we hope, added value, timely comments. And going back to my accountancy days, which are more years ago than I care to remember, I was told that information must be timely, accurate, and relevant. And the timeliness of information is vital. There's no point being 100% correct 3 days too late. It's better to be 95% correct on the button, there and then. So we've kept the information flowing. We've talked to companies where we've got investments. We've talked to anybody who'll talk to us because we just want to find out what's going on the ground. We need to talk to Welsh operators, find out what happens when Wales open. Well, Wales opened on Monday. So what's happening there? What can we expect first week of December? What do the Scots changes mean? Do they push our politicians in a certain direction, etc.? So fascinating but difficult.
Have you actually changed your business, or is it just become, it stayed the same, but actually the information you've got has perhaps been of more quick relevance to operators now and understanding what other people have been doing, or have you actually changed the business?
No, changes have been imposed on us. That's a fact. Can't go down to London, or nowhere near as much as I had done previously. Company visits are pretty much out. The presentations are all virtual now. So there have been some real material changes. As far as the revenue side of it, the revenue and costs, we do invest in companies. I was a director of Drake & Morgan, for example, before we exited to Beaumark a few years back. And I do have investments in Darwin & Wallace and several other companies. And the exits, the chance for investors to get out of their investments now is very, there is no real exit market. And you can see sites are flooding onto the market from people who are shutting them down. And there's a bit of a logjam, a sclerosis, as it were, in the whole market, where the liquidity, the speed with which you can turn investments, you just can't turn them. So there have been changes imposed on us, and we've kept going to the best of our ability.
Great. Well, I always use your stuff anyway. I always pinch your stuff with permission and put it on LinkedIn. So it's always great. It always looks as though I'm more knowledgeable than I really am because I've pinched Mark's stuff. Amber, what about you? How's your business changed?
So obviously I only founded Bums on Seats in 2019 in January. So, you know, coming into this year, the year was going to look very different for us in terms of, you know, turnover and forecast. I think we had a phenomenal year one because I think I gap in the market, been in the industry for a long time, worked really, really hard. But in some respects, it was almost too quick, you know, and we grew very, very quickly. And we had lots of clients, lots of juggling. And I didn't really get the time to take a step back from the business and think about the longer term business and what is the next 3 to 4 years looking like. So actually COVID's given me that opportunity amongst all the chaos of just fighting for survival and to keep going. But for me, it was about things like, what do we want to be famous for? How do I make sure we're essential? Because it's no good having a business that isn't essential to survive COVID. How do I look after my people? Because I need them to have a business to come back to, and I want to upskill and train them during this period. And how do I keep hold of my clients and actually make sure that we are delivering the best service, that we are as good as we say we are, that we are, you know, you're only as good as your sales figures when you run a sales agency. There's nowhere to hide. It's very black and white. So are we fine-tuned enough? So it was a really good opportunity to get all of those things sorted. So we did not stop, and we have not stopped. And actually coming out of, hopefully this year, we will have a much stronger business, even if it isn't stronger in turnover. But it will certainly be stronger as a business to take it to the next 3 to 5 years.
Because yours is a very, you know, a very specific business. When you talk about bums on seats, if there are no seats, you would imagine you have no business. Where at least with Katie and Mark and Matt to a certain extent, they can carry on going because they're providing data and information and insight.
Yeah.
You're getting bums on seats. There are no seats.
Yeah.
So presumably that provided you with quite a challenge.
Yeah, it did. But, you know, what we are experts in is relationship builders and identifying opportunities and helping operators with different revenue streams. So we span into the gift voucher, gift experience market, and we've collaborated with Toggle and Airship to do that. You know, we take a lot of Katie's data from Cam Media and show that the importance of keep speaking to your customers. You need to continue with sales. The moment you stop a sales focus, you've got to work 3 times as hard to get that back. So just because the venue isn't open doesn't mean you stop selling. That's the worst thing you can do. So actually we maintain clients, we carried on busy, and we've just won, you know, we're winning new business because people are understanding that now. And businesses that typically saved space for walk-in, you know, I love that thing that operators do, which made sense a few years ago, which we can't do moving forward. We've got to fight for those relationships and that loyalty from our customers and get those pre-bookings in. And Bums on Seats, that's our whole business model. So we've become more essential, I would say, out of COVID, not less.
And Matt, do you remember the question? It was so long ago.
You know, COVID's actually allowed me to grow. I know it's going to sound extremely weird, but the opportunities that it's provided me from really talented people, either been furloughed or made redundant, that I can then pick up and incorporate into my business, and then allowing me to grow my client base and my team. On the 1st of June, it was me, Matt, the single consultant. As of today, I've got 11 people working for me.
Wow.
And 20 clients.
So what happened? Did people just come to you in July and go, help? What do I do?
A bit of that, and brands coming to us as well saying, Matt, we've got rid of 10 of our salespeople, but we still need sales during either lockdown or during the restarts. What can you provide for us? And our system is very clear. You know, for the same price as a sales manager, you get a team of 10 people around the country working on that account.
Right.
So it becomes very cost effective. And then, you know, the challenges for lockdown 2.0, you know, we obviously can't do sales. It's quite sensitive to approach operators. So how do we think out the box? So as an example, with Singer, our karaoke client, we're now going to be doing virtual staff parties during November and December. You know, people still got budgets to do that in their workplace. So we've already sold 10 in the last week, you know, a couple thousand each.
Great.
So things like that, it's thinking completely out of the box, and how we can still get the best value for our clients going forward. But
so sorry, Matt, are you thinking of opportunities for your clients, or are they coming to you to say, I've got an opportunity, can you make the most of it, or is it both?
I can't take all the credit. I've got 10 people that I can rely on to come up with ideas. So it's our team, it's their team. We are an extension of the brand sales team. That's how we view ourselves. We're part of their team.
Great. So talking about next year, actually no, I'll talk about this year and Christmas. Just a view from you all about what you think is going to happen in Christmas, because it's usually such a huge trading period for operators and suppliers. What's your view on what's going to happen this year? Mark, starting with you, what's your view on it?
Yeah, I think pre-bookings, I mean, I know Amber knows more about this than I do, but pre-bookings will be down on last year because people are a little bit nervous about making bookings. Will they get the money back? Will they be allowed to go? What is going to be the situation come mid-December? So if pre-bookings are down a little bit, that means certainty is reduced. And if certainty is reduced, the operators should really commit themselves less. And I think that means keeping your menu a little bit closer to your normal menu, not taking big risks on whatever food you would have got in for a normal Christmas celebration. And I'm not saying they just offer fish and chips and bangers and mash, but they maybe don't go, they're not as experimental as they may have otherwise been with the menu. That said, it'll be a very big walk-in Christmas, provided we have a Christmas, but the nature of the business will just be different. And it's more difficult to labour schedule, more difficult to stock order, more difficult to plan if you don't have pre-booking. So hopefully it'll be good, but it'll be different. It'll be very different.
Yeah, because there's no corporate bookings going to be happening. No,
exactly. I mean, we don't even know. I'm guessing, I think most of us hopefully would agree that the rule of 6 probably will still be there.
Yeah.
And if it is, then why on earth would you make an office party booking for 40 people? It's just not going to happen, really.
No.
Yeah. Amber, Christmas with you. You're probably very close to what's happening at Christmas, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, look, for me, you know, our tagline is Christmas isn't cancelled. No one's pretending it's going to be the same as previous years. It's not. It's definitely going to be very, very different. It will not be anywhere near as financially rewarding as Christmas typically is in terms of profit. No way. But it isn't cancelled, and I firmly believe that there will be a boom through December. It will. I think we are going to be reopened. I'm convinced of that now. I wasn't, but I'm convinced of that more and more. And I think, yes, venues should be picking up the phone and selling Christmas. Absolutely. And I don't think that should stop. And I think they should extend it. I think it should go on into January. And I think everybody just needs a jolly good party, whether that is for 6 people or for 2. So I say, go crack on with Christmas because I think we all need it.
Yeah. Matt, what have you found about Christmas?
Well, I hope it's going to happen this year. But I think I agree with Mark. It'll be probably up to 6 people. Yeah. Just before lockdown 2.0, we had a hashtag meet out to help out, sort of exploiting the business meeting loophole. And we hope that's going to happen going forward, that you can actually go into a pub and have a meeting in December, and we'll be heavily promoting that as well, you know, and so should venues. Exploit that. You've got fantastic pubs, great seating, great Wi-Fi, great coffees now, you know. People should be out there having the meetings in pubs and bars. It's safer to go to a pub than a hospital.
Yeah. So there's a view what Christmas is going to be. Well, Katie, it's going to be what, 40–50% of what it was last year? Is it going to be that high?
Yeah, I mean, I think you might be being a bit optimistic, because I think certainly from our research, it's showing that people are planning for a much smaller Christmas. And we know that around 23% extra is spent on food and drink over Christmas and New Year, because people up trade, for example, if you're looking at the grocery industry. So we're looking at what that's looking like this year, and that's looking more like 16%. We actually did some research recently where we asked people whether they were going to celebrate Christmas or not, and believe it or not, normally around 3% of UK adults just don't celebrate Christmas for whatever reason. This year that's come out at 11%. Now that's a big amount of people who are just going, we're not doing Christmas. So I think we need to be mindful of that. Certainly the conversations that we're having with our clients, what I'm saying to them is, don't have a plan, have 4, because you need a plan for, you are not open and you have no bums on seats, unfortunately, and therefore what are you going to do? And then you need a plan for, we're open but with these restrictions in place. Then you need a plan for, we're open but we've got a 2-week period and then we're going to go back into lockdown. So what we've been saying to all our customers is, look at what consumers are telling you they're going to do. And as I say, the Christmas research that we've just done, we've split it out into if the industry is open and if the industry is closed. That's free for anyone on our website, by the way, if you want that. But yeah, make those plans. Understand that it may well change day to day, week to week, and you need to have a plan for each one of those eventualities.
And what you do is
sorry,
stop talking to your customers.
Stop what?
Would you agree with that, Katie? But what you don't do is stop talking to your customers.
No, absolutely not.
That's been, yeah.
Yeah. And we had, you know, going back to what you asked earlier, Anne, about people and what people did, you know, when lockdown first happened, as in our own businesses, everything we had fell off a cliff. I mean, because we work across grocery retail and they were just too busy getting loo roll on the shelves. Then with hospitality, that got closed. So the first 3 weeks, I was just sitting there getting, you know, drinking that evening glass of wine, just sort of like half an hour earlier, until my husband was like, right, this is enough. You know,
it's not breakfast.
Yeah, exactly. It's not, you know, champagne is not breakfast wine, darling. So yeah, then after we got past that bit, I realized that, oh my God, this is a whole new world. And we don't know what consumers want. We don't know what customers want. We don't know how they're going to behave. And all of a sudden, our clients started kind of going, oh, hi, Katie, can we speak to you about this? And can we run this piece of work? And can we? And all of a sudden, that started to grow. And, you know, which, thank God, because again, it saved me from a life of alcoholism or throw myself off the aforementioned bridge. So, you know, we did have that situation. But Amber's so right. You have to keep speaking to your customers. And you know, if you don't have the money to use an agency, don't. But get out there and do it yourself, you know, and find out what they want from you and how you can make their experience over the festive period as good as it can possibly be.
Yeah, great. So 2021, January, new start. You usually look at it, don't you, go new year, new diary and all of that. What's your view? What do you feel optimistic about, I suppose, is the first part. And the second bit is really, do you think there'll be another lockdown before we get back to normal? Amber.
Yeah, so optimistic is easier for me to answer. Yes, if you look at the whole of next year, I think that certainly 6 months, spring and summer next year, we should all be very optimistic, absolutely. I think with the vaccine, what is it now, 94.5%, the American vaccine, yeah, no reason not to be optimistic. I think the technology that started this year will only continue to improve and grow. I think everything that we've learned from COVID, I hope will only continue to improve and grow. I think there is, let's hope travel and tourism starts to bounce back in 12 months' time. Let's hope, you know, all the things that we've lost, events, all of that stuff. Yes, working from home, I think will stay as a culture. But to Matt's point, is there, you know, desk dogs and working from pubs and all of that stuff that can help. So it's going to be different, but there's a lot of optimism. Do I think there's going to be another lockdown? I think it's a distinct possibility for January, absolutely. If they let us trade through December, they could lock us down again in January, and that's definitely from sort of my contacts and my clients, that's what we are planning for. To Katie's point, plan for it. Plan for a complete lockdown, plan for a tier 3, plan for a tier 2, and look three months ahead. And then I feel like from April onwards, there's going to be an absolute boom. And I really do believe that. I think people are going to go wild for our businesses again.
Great. Matt?
Absolutely. I think Q1 next year, vaccine taking effect, the most vulnerable being vaccinated. By March, April, the majority of the UK population has been vaccinated, at least for the first vaccine. So the immunity gets built up. Lots more confidence in the sector. I am fearful that Christmas, particularly people going home back to their families, becomes a super spreader event. That's my biggest fear.
And do you think we'll close down? Do you think there'll be another lockdown?
If the R number goes up, absolutely. You'll see mid-January, 2-3 weeks later, there'll be another lockdown. That's my fear.
You know, and I'll come back to you, Katie, in a minute, but you talked about normality. Amber, do you really think we're going to be back to normal by April?
I think the word normal is out the window a little bit, isn't it? I think because customer behaviours changed at the fastest rate that we know, certainly in our lifetime. So I don't think normal is necessarily the key, but I think in terms of people wanting to come out into hospitality businesses again, I think we will see a peak of that from March, April, yes.
So normal, Matt, when you get, not you personally, when do you think the market's going to get back to normal?
Probably towards the end of Q2 next year.
Okay, so we're looking sort of June-ish.
Yeah.
So Katie, your views on next year?
I'm a little bit more pessimistic than those guys.
Oh no, you're the most optimistic amongst us.
I am normally, but I think that the majority of people will be vaccinated by March or April when you look at the absolute show that this government has put us through over the last 8 months, I think is not only optimistic, I just think it's impossible. I don't think that this government has the ability to vaccinate the best part of 66 million people in a 3-month period when we're not even getting that vaccine till end of the year, if we're lucky, January, if we're not, they've only ordered 40 million of them as well. So I just think that's an impossibility. What I do think is the amount of pivoting and innovation that has happened will put us in a good stead. And I think that there will be another lockdown in January, but we're going to cope with it. And we're going to go, okay, great. Now we switch back to delivery. And now we put our onus on gift vouchers or whatever, however that looks. So I'm optimistic that we can cope with it rather than I'm optimistic that it will get back to normal. I think that the other point to make is that, well, some of my optimism for 2021, which revolves around exactly what I've just said, is that we now have brands that understand that they have to be omnichannel. They cannot just be a pub, a bar, or a restaurant. They need to have that online presence. They need to have that at-home offering. They need to have that cook at home or fully cooked and take away. They need to be able to offer cocktail kits. They need to be able, all of those different things. So my optimism for 2021 very much sits around the fact that hospitality brands who have, historically been a little bit behind where retail brands are, have caught up and actually will be able to give retail brands a bit of a run for their money and create an entire new way to liaise and connect with their customers. And that's where I feel optimistic.
Yeah. I mean, if you just looked at Coat at Home, where did Coat at Home come from?
I know, so true.
I know. I did the lobster and chips one in the first lockdown. It was one of the best meals I'd had. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I thought it was great. It was just, oh wow, I hadn't seen that coming. Mark, what are you optimistic about?
Yeah, I am optimistic that we'll return to our normal social selves over a period of time. The big question mark is how long is time? Because there were pubs and restaurants in biblical times, and there always have been, and there have been pandemics, and we've got back to pubs and restaurants. So I'm pretty certain that'll happen. I'm trying to overlay that with the suggestion from a couple of people I've spoken to that it is easy to get out of the habit of doing things. And then I think your genes will kick in and you want to go and meet people. That's what we do. So you will get back into the habit of meeting and going out and socializing. But I think it will take a little time. That's one side of it. The other side of it is that both the supply and the demand will be different. I've kind of alluded to demand, but the supply is going to be pretty different as well. There will be a lot of boarded up restaurants. There's no doubt about that. The people who are still standing and operating will do consequently better, and they could be busier. I don't think we're going to abandon social distancing anytime soon. I tend to think that at the moment, the R rate is above 1, and we're in lockdown. So what makes us think the R rate will go below 1 when we come out of lockdown? It'll probably go the other way. So I think that a third lockdown, potentially February, is possible. Indeed, it might be likely. I disagree with one of my lads here, one of my sons. My co-workers are also several of my children. And I disagreed with one of them. He was saying that he thought if the vaccine can be pushed out first to the most vulnerable, which I'm sure it will be, then the death rate should fall, even if people get the disease. And I mean, it's not pleasant, but very few people, fit and healthy people below the age of 70 or 80, succumb. So if the government can take it on the chin that people get a bit ill and sadly some of them do die, but not many, then that will mitigate against the lockdown. But I think that the timing of the rollout of the vaccine, there could easily be one in February, yes.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think it was Brandon Stevens I was talking to last night, and he was saying, I don't know whether, don't quote me on these figures, I don't know whether they're right or wrong, but he was saying the number of under 65s that have died is something like 371 people. I mean, it was not huge, but not huge. Amber, what are your optimism?
Yeah, I think I've already said, and I do agree with Mark on your analogy there, Mark. I do think that if the vaccine goes to the most vulnerable, then people's confidence will be restored, and the government maybe will make slightly different decisions. But we've got a long way to go, haven't we? But for me, it's about keep innovating, keep doing what's working, keep those new revenue streams going, keep speaking to your customers, look after your people, and we'll get through it. We will get through it.
One of the things as well I picked up yesterday was this worry, and this is probably one for Mark, about rents, that there are a lot of landlords just waiting for the rent moratorium to end, and are then going to hit a lot of operators with all of the rent for 2020 and all of the service charge. And that will see more companies going to CVA, and it will see more businesses close. Is that a pessimistic view, Mark, or a realistic one?
I'm glad to be able to say that I'm slightly more optimistic than that. Doesn't happen very often as a dour Yorkshireman. I come across as occasionally pessimistic. But I think that the landlords, the realpolitik will kick in. And the landlords realise that if they have somebody who could take it for an alternative use, then they may well take the property back and let it out again. If nobody wants the property, then the landlord's facing the real prospect of paying the business rates when they kick back in after the 1st of April. So the landlord would be, in some circumstances, cutting off his or her nose to spite their face. That said, there is a problem. We saw this back around the millennium with bar companies, where there was a huge rush onto the high street with Poonana and various operators that leapt onto the high street and caused a lot of problems with capacity, and then pretty much went out of business over a period of time. And the landlords realised that if somebody's put in 4, 5, 6, 7, 800,000 pounds worth of F&E, fixtures and equipment, then they can seize it and give it to another person to operate for an incoming of a couple of £100,000. So you get 800 grand's worth of kit for 200 grand. So there's a kind of iterating process where the first operator pays for it, goes bust. The second operator comes in, trades for a while, goes bust. A third operator, fourth operator. And it's only then that the building is demolished or boarded up or becomes something else. So that's kind of seeing both sides of it, but I don't think there'll be a rush of evictions.
Good. So final question then, what's on your wish list for 2021? Matt, start with you.
That the government looks at the Public Health England stats, and that between 2 and 5% of traceable infections of COVID in hospitality is actually a manageable number. And there's no reason to lock down pubs again.
Katie.
I've got three actually. I've got one for the industry, and that is that the good people survive, and that the people that are really, working to overcome the challenges that the pandemic is bringing survive, and that new exciting operators come into the industry, almost with a business plan that involves COVID to start with, rather than having to retrospectively put that in what you're doing. From a work, as in a CAM Media point of view, I have been over the moon at seeing people, a lot of our clients and clients that we didn't work with before, who are starting to go back to what we used to see quite some time ago, and Anne, you'll know this better than me, which is insight-led strategic decisions. So rather than, I think this is going to work and I'm going to do this, it's I'm going to speak to 500 consumers and find out if it's going to work. So I hope that for 2021, those insight-led strategic decisions keep going. And then from a personal note, can I have Robert Downey Jr., please?
I'll see. Oh, I don't know if I've got him on my phone, but if I have, you can have him first.
Yeah, thank you.
Mark.
It's a wish rather than an expectation, but I'd like to have some degree of certainty next year, and that's been lacking in the last 9 months for sure. It may not be there, but with certainty you can plan, and if you can plan, at least you've got a fighting chance of getting through the remainder of next year. What I would say is that I would like to see also the good operators, I think Katie just said this, put a bit of distance between themselves and the kind of Me Too undifferentiated operators, a lot of whom are funded by private equity, and they've worked on very thin balance sheets where the idea was to do it for debt if you can, and there'll never be a chill wind. And of course, this has been a chill wind to beat all chill winds. And the good operators that have not taken quite so many financial risks and have a better product, they deserve to succeed. And I really hope they do next year. I think they will.
Great. Amber.
I just don't want to go through this year again, to be honest. That'd be nice if I could.
Different, yeah.
No, I think on a serious note, I would like to see getting Gen Z and more young talent back into our industry from next year. I'd like to see improvements around the recruitment and apprenticeship schemes and all of that stuff. I think there's loads still in investment in people. I'd love to see that next year. And I think, yeah, to mirror what everybody's already said, but the just lack of no more uncertainty. To be able to plan, so I can just get on with the business really. And I've got ambition, and I'd like to start really going for that next year.
Brilliant. Thank you. Anybody else want to make any other points before I close?
What do you want, Anne?
Good question.
Oh, what do I want? Well, what I really like is the networking and the collaboration in the sector, and I think it's been a huge force for good to date. The WhatsApp groups and the chats and the Zooms, and I'd like to see that continue in a sector which thrives.
Yeah.
So thank you. It was really wonderful to chat to you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to host the webinar, Matt. I've really enjoyed it, and I wish we could have done it face to face, but never mind. And I think I just have room envy. I'm looking at Mark's books, I'm looking at your lighting, I'm looking at your lamps, I'm thinking, oh, I've just got room envy. But thank you very much. At some point we will meet face to face. It obviously won't be at the UKH lunch, but hopefully we'll meet together very soon in the new year. And I wish you all the best to Christmas and for 2021. Thank you, Matt.